Happy Friday! Welcome to Seniors Matter. I'm Brenda Charles Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your South Seattle community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook.com, and of course, on the Rainier Avenue Radio app. We feature interviews with people that provide services or have valuable information for seniors, their families, and of course, the community. Do you need financial documents notarized? Are you a person that needs documents read to you for clarity or completion? Just give me a call at Black Orchid Notary, 206-683-2636. Well, my guest today is Mrs. Janice Jackson Haley. She's a volunteer coordinator for Heart and Soul Hospice of King County, and she happens to be a friend of mine too. Welcome to the show, Janice. So good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brenda.
It's always a pleasure, my dear. Always a pleasure. So let's get right to it because there's a lot to cover. Janice, what inspired you to create community conversations on how to die well at Heart and Soul?
Really good question. Thank you, Brenda. This series grew out of my work in hospice and my belief that talking openly about death can actually deepen our appreciation for life. And over the years, I've witnessed how powerful it is when families and communities have really honest conversations, compassionate conversations, frankly, about dying. And it really changes, frankly, how we live, how we love, and how we show up for one another. I wanted to create a safe, inclusive space where those conversations could happen across faiths, cultures, and different experiences, because the fact of the matter is we will all experience this journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just thinking about that when you were saying that, because it doesn't matter what your faith belief is. You're going to die.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have some type of faith belief.
Exactly.
So what does the phrase dying well mean to you personally?
Good question. For me, dying well isn't about, controlling the circumstances, if you will. It's about how we meet them, right? So it's about approaching the end of life with the intention, connection, and peace rather than fear or avoidance. It really means having our emotional, spiritual, and our practical affairs in order. Yes, but also being able to say, I've loved people deeply, I've forgiven people freely, and I've lived in alignment with what matters most. And so to me, that's what dying well means.
I agree with you 100%. And as you know, I am a facilitator for end-of-life planning. And the one thing that I've learned and had an experience personally was before my loved one, my dad in particular, died, he apologized to me for all the hurt that he had caused me in my lifetime. And this was about 5 years, this was a little over 5 years ago. And when I was in the hospital with him, I wasn't quite sure if he really knew what he was saying, but as I asked him more questions, I realized he did. Yeah. So I told him, thank you. I really appreciated that. And when he'd passed a week later and we were at the funeral, I didn't cry. And I believe it's because I had gotten closure with him. He got closure with me because I said I forgave him. But it was really more, it was for both of us. We both got closure. And what I've observed over the years is that when I go to a funeral and family members are really distraught and emotional, it's because they didn't get that closure. Either they didn't tell someone they were sorry, or the person didn't tell them they were sorry.
Right.
And it makes a big difference.
It does. It does. It really does. I think you articulated that beautifully.
So why do you believe now is the right time for this kind of community dialogue? As I agree with you, it is.
Right. I just think that we've come through a period, especially after the pandemic, which was very traumatic for everybody, frankly,
Right.
where loss has touched everyone. Yet we still struggle to talk about it. We still struggle to talk about death and the end of life. And many people, are caring for aging parents. They're facing their own health challenges, or simply, I don't know, rethinking what a good life looks like.
Right.
Our collective grief is really asking us to pause and listen, to create spaces that restore meaning and community around the natural cycle of life and death. So this moment calls for courage and compassion and conversation. So I just thought it was the right time to start these community conversations.
And I know you've already had one, and I was in it, and it really the speakers that you had were from different religions, and it was very interesting to hear how religions, they're different, but
Yeah,
in some ways they're the same.
yeah, yeah.
And I know you have another one coming up on
Mhm.
next Friday, November 7th.
Yes. Mhm,
And
mhm.
I want people to know that there's still time to get it. It's a Zoom call.
Mhm.
So, Janice, would you tell them how they can sign up for that, please?
Sure. You can actually go to Heart and Soul Hospice.com to register. And let me just say, yes, although this is a 3-part virtual series, and next Friday, November 7th, will be the second of those series. Each session will explore dying well through different lenses. And so, yeah, folks can register. It's just for 60 minutes. People can attend even the next one that we'll be having December 5th. And I think if these conversations go well, we'll keep having them.
Oh, good.
So far, we've really gotten some good feedback.
That is great. If you're just tuning in, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles Edwards, on www.rainieravenueradio.world. And do you know what's the best legacy we can give ourselves and our loved ones? Well, we've been talking about it. Join me on Zoom or in person for a group or individual session on legacy end of life planning. And you can reach me at 206-683-2636. Now, back to Mrs. Janice Jackson Haley, the volunteer coordinator of Heart and Soul Hospice of King County. And by the way, it's Heart, H-E-R-T apostrophe N,
Yes.
Soul, S-O-U-O-L.
You got it. Heart and Soul Hospice. You've got it.
Because I remember the first time I heard of it. Well, when Nathan, I was working with him, and I thought it was just A-N-D, and then I saw it in writing, and I said,
yeah.
oh, it's that kind of N.
Yes, yes, yes. It's soulful. I'm gonna
It is
just say.
definitely. Absolutely, absolutely. So, who are some of the featured panelists, and what perspectives will they bring?
Great question. Well, we've curated a diverse and really, again, a deeply experienced panel. For example, Dr. Keshana Guidry. She is a California-based hospice and palliative care physician and founder of Morning Dove Medical. It's a mobile concierge practice serving patients and families at home She's
Wow.
also an author. She published a book on hospice. She's a podcast host and really just an advocate dedicated to improving end-of-life care and actually also promoting equity and compassion
Ah,
within the healthcare system, which you know is important.
yes.
The other person that will be joining us is Rabbi Kate Spicer. She's the director of adult engagement at Temple D. Hirsch Sinai, right in Seattle, where she leads community building, learning, and connection initiatives in not only Seattle, but also Bellevue. So the rabbi will be with us. Mark Sacknoff. Mark is a 41-year member of the SGI, Soka Gakkai International Buddhist Association, and he supports what's called the Many Treasures Group for Buddhists over the age of 65. And SGI is a worldwide lay Buddhist organization that promotes peace, culture, and education through the practice of Nichiren Buddhism. And then we will have Wendy Norman. Wendy Norman is an end-of-life planning consultant and founder of Known Wishes. They are based out of Bellevue. It's an online resource, though, but you can go in person in Bellevue to attend their workshops to help educate not only the public, but individuals and raise awareness about end-of-life choices and preparing for the expected and frankly unexpected. And then, of course, you, Ms. Brenda Charles Edwards, our very own ambassador that is out there always spreading the good news. You're going to be facilitating this virtual event, and as you did the last one, and we just couldn't be thrilled enough. So, yeah, great folks.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm always open to learning, and there was so much there. So much.
Yeah.
So this sounds just as exciting. So I can hardly wait. So since many people are fearful of talking about death, how can we begin to make the change to make them less fearful?
Yeah, well, I think engaging in these community conversations is one way. And I think I want to step back for a moment because we make assumptions about people's knowledge about hospice and what hospice care is about. And so I want to be clear that hospice in particular is a model of care focused on enhancing the quality of life for individuals who are near the end of life. They've received a prognosis of 6 months or less if a disease follows its natural course. And so rather than seeking a curative treatment, hospice really emphasizes comfort, dignity, and support for both the patient and their loved ones. The reason why I think it's important to sort of step back and look at what hospice is all about is at times, actually, I'll say at least 70% of the time when we engage a patient, some of these conversations about end of life have not been had. And there is almost a race, if you will, to in those last few months and sometimes weeks when we get a patient before they transition and pass away, where the conversations about end of life are happening. So I just think anytime's the right time, and we've found a number of different tools that work in the short run when we engage different family members and patients, and we're talking about hospice care. But I can't stress the importance more of really having these conversations frequently and regularly. What I like to do, it's a family sort of joke for me, but I like to, on my birthday, rather than receiving gifts and whatnot, I'd rather talk to my family about death. And the eyes roll and everything, but it is yet again my opportunity to talk about it. Then, of course, my poor husband, he has to put up with endless conversations about end of life. So yeah, I just think it's always the right time, frankly.
Okay, so Janice, while we're talking about you, uh, so I'm just curious. Do you tell them you're having a party and you invite them all over, or
No, not a party. Generally, for your birthday, they'll take you to dinner
right?
or whatever,
Mhm.
and they know now that my gift and what I want to receive as a gift is an opportunity to talk openly and honestly about death and end of life. When are we going to have these conversations? So I just kind of figure that, well, it's my time,
Right,
and it's my gift that you're
right,
giving me, which is the opportunity to talk about something that's very important to me.
right. Oh, I love it. That's great.
So they always know. They're like, I know we're going to talk about death. Okay. At
And they
least,
show up.
I've got card games, all sorts of things that I use to engage the family.
I love it. That's the first time I've heard that, and
Mhm.
I think it's great. Uh, I'm sorry. Um, so, do you think dying well can also mean living well?
Wow, you hit the nail on the head completely. Frankly, I think the more consciously we live, the more peacefully we die, I promise you. It sort of goes back to the conversation that you had with your dad, right? And
Mhm.
so when we live with awareness that we're not promised tomorrow, expressing love and gratitude and forgiveness and even purpose, we're constantly preparing for a good death. And so yes, dying well is really the first, it's like the final reflection of how we've lived. And
Mm.
it's the last verse of, I like to say, and I'm not a poet, but it's the last verse of a song we've been composing all along.
Ah,
And we have the opportunity while we're alive to live well and compose that song in a way that really represents who we were.
I like that. Oh,
Mhm.
that's very nice. Well, what's funny too is I had spoken to my dad on numerous occasions about what happens if you are getting near the end of your life. What do you want? What do you want us to do or not do? And he always said the same thing. I'll deal with it when the time comes. And under
Yeah.
my breath, I always say, no, you won't. We'll have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's so wild though, he had prostate cancer for 50 years. He was
Wow.
96 when he died, and he died of pneumonia. Go
Oh,
figure.
wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's not uncommon. Wow. Long
So
life he lived.
yeah. And but that, like I said, because I do this work, I knew that, you're not going to be able, we're going to do it, not you. But
Yeah. It'll be us.
fortunately, my mother has done things. So I'm grateful for that.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, we have the cemetery and the plot, the casket. Um,
Okay.
but
Yes.
let me just throw this out for those of you that are, getting your house in order and you're at the cemetery and you want to get a plot and you pay all this money. Don't just look at the fine print that says when you think you've paid for it all, you still have to pay for opening and closing of the grave.
Mhm.
We found
Mhm.
that out with my dad because mom had
Mhm.
bought a plot in 1975 and it was all paid for when dad died. And it's like, what do you
Oh,
mean we have to pay for opening and closing? But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So,
Lots of surprise
oh,
expenses and costs.
right. So, Janice, also, no, I lost my thought. Well, I'll ask you something else and it'll come back.
Sure.
So, oh, I know, hospice.
Hmm.
For a lot of our people, hospice is scary
Yes.
because they don't understand what hospice is and they think that you're going to kill them off.
Right.
Could you go a little bit into that, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, as I was saying earlier, it's this specialized model of care for folks that have a life-limiting disease, and it is really hospice emphasizes um, um, really comfort, dignity, and support rather than curative treatment. If someone has a life-limiting disease and the prognosis is 6 months or less, and they choose to still engage in curative care, they wouldn't necessarily qualify for hospice. That's palliative care. They may still want to do more rounds of chemotherapy if they have cancer. But for hospice patients, these are patients that are not seeking a curative treatment and really want to live out their life in comfort and dignity and with support. We and many other hospices have what's called an interdisciplinary team to really provide holistic support. And the interdisciplinary team will have chaplains and nurses, social workers, CNAs. We are incorporating, and a physician, of course, we're incorporating the work of doulas, end of life doulas. So all of that comes together to support a patient, a hospice patient, as they come close to the end of their life. And as you know, we have volunteers, and volunteers are really essential to Heart and Soul's model. So we have volunteers that offer companionship, legacy work, ambassador roles, such as your role that you have with Heart and Soul. Sometimes it's caregiver respite. Sometimes folks are caring for their loved ones and they need a break, and our
Right.
volunteers can come in and support. So it's thanks for asking about that. And our commitment with Heart and Soul Hospice is to really get out in the community and educate the community, and that's what our community conversations on dying well. That's just one thing that we're doing to educate folks more.
So you've already had one session of these
Mhm.
conversations. And as you were preparing for the next two, has anything surprised you most as you've prepared for these conversations?
Yeah. What surprised me most is when everything comes together and folks are able to have the conversation about end of life. That is really when humanity really shows up in its truest form. That it wasn't necessarily surprising, it was comforting and reassuring to know that we were having these conversations where there was such honesty. I know you witnessed in the chat, there was vulnerability, real beauty in these moments where people engaged in the virtual event in a way that was more open than I expected. So if there's one surprise, it would have been that.
I agree with you. So we're nearing the end of our time, but I want you to leave my listeners with one message about dying well that you think is important and that, you know, would help their lives and their deaths?
Sure. If I could leave your listeners with one message about dying well, it would be that death is not the opposite of life. It's a part of it. And that's where the disconnect oftentimes happens. And when we face death with openness, we find a deeper reverence for the time that we do have right now. So talking about death is really like talking about love, who we love, how we love, and how we want to be remembered for that love. That's what I'd love to leave with your listeners.
Thank you. I think that's really important. Just before, I just want to say that it's called Community Conversations on Dying Well. It's a virtual discussion exploring meaningful ways to approach the end of life with care, dignity, and connection. It's Friday, November 7th from 1 to 2. And please go to the website of Heart and Soul, HERT''N, Soul, King County, and sign up, because I'd love to see you there. And I know that you'll learn a lot. I want to thank my listening and viewing audience. Of course, my guest, Mrs. Janice Jackson Haley, the volunteer coordinator of Heart and Soul. And of course, a special thanks to my musician on his music of ragtime, Mr. MC Class. And then as far as sports go Seahawks. At least we got one going here. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Live your life like it's golden. And Janice, I'll see you shortly.
Thank you so much.
Bye.